Password's not working.
I just like that.
I did. Trying to remember what it was. Ah, I'm in.
Okay, great. All right, so I got you.
We're missing two.
Trustee Ruiz, good morning. How are you today, sir? Oh, I think you might be muted.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Trustee Ruiz?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And are you in the process of logging into PrimeGov?
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for you.
Is there anybody not logged into PrimeGov platform
Um,
from him?
Just a picture of them right on
Councilman
the
Cooper.
beach playing football.
Oh,
Picture of the sunset was unbelievable over the lake.
There he is. Thank you, Trustee Ruiz. I have you in.
Am I muted right now? Yeah. All right, I have 9 o'clock, and it looks like we have a quorum, so I will call the meeting to order. I want to remind everybody that if we get disconnected, COPTA will attempt to restore the communications within 15 minutes, and if they cannot, then the meeting will reconvene at a certain time that will be announced. Also, we are going to have a citizen to be heard, and I will remind that person that when I call upon him, he has to press *6 to be able to speak. All right, items from the chairman. I do have 3 items. I want to congratulate Iris Newman on her retirement yesterday. She's been as pleasant a person to work for and work with as anybody we've had. I don't know what Jason's going to do without her or what any of us are going to do without her. But I did give her a little piece of advice that my dad once told me. He said, you can't retire from something, you have to retire to something. And she said she'd take that advice to heart and try to retire to something. So also, citizens to be heard, I'm going to move that to the end of the individual considerations on item E, 1 and 2, because we do have a citizen that has called in and wants to speak to that. So I'm going to move that to the end of the individual considerations. The other item is election of officers. It's that time of year again. So I would hear a motion for both chairman and vice chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for Chris Kaufman as chairman and Barney Simpner as vice chairman.
Do I have a second? Do we have to vote on those separately?
Chairman, no, you do not. You can do it in one vote.
Okay, then do I have a second?
Cooper.
I'll second that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. So we have a motion and a second
All
from
right.
trustee Johnson.
All right. All in favor, say aye or log in aye.
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 Brent, aye.
This is Robert. I.
Aye. So, all right, thank you. We'll see if we can make it through another year with our same slate of officers. So our next item is approval of our minutes of the Transportation Committee meeting of July 7th. Any corrections or additions or questions about those minutes? If not, I'd have a motion to approve.
Barney, move approval.
Second?
I'll second. Lisa, are we not gonna do this in Prime Gov?
I'm attempting to do that right now, so I apologize.
So I guess we'll do a voice vote until we get in there. So we have a motion and a second to approve those minutes. Aye.
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 This is Brent, aye.
Steve, aye.
This is
Robert,
James.
Aye. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, James.
Motion passes. Also, then we have approval of our minutes of the July 10th COPTA board meeting. Again, any questions, deletions, or additions? If not, I'd have a motion to approve.
Barney, move approval.
Second, James.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chris, aye.
Brent, aye.
Laura, aye.
Robert. I.
Okay, motion passes. Our consent docket, several items on there. Are there any items any of the trustees would like individual consideration or individual discussion on? Or Jason, are there any of the items that you'd like to make mention of?
Not particularly. I did want to see, Mr. Chairman, if we could just check in with Lisa real quick and see if, Lisa, are we in a position where we can now use Prime Gov to vote on the rest of the agenda?
Jason,
Yes,
that we just did move and second the consent docket.
yes. I apologize.
No, it's fine. We're just checking. Okay. No, Mr. Chairman, there's no items I had in particular to mention.
All right, any questions about any of the trustees? If not, I'd have a motion to approve our consent docket.
Chairman Kaufman, I
Yes.
think you accidentally hit absent. Vice Chairman Setner, are you in the meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's try that.
All right.
I'm
Is there anything you need to do for Cooper?
Oh, yes. Hang on a second. Did it?
I couldn't tell by the vote. Did
still,
everybody vote?
no, hang on, I don't know.
I apologize. I saved and closed it, so I'm not sure why it did not display on the
It did display, it did.
Oh, did it?
It passed and unanimously, and I don't think Councilman Cooper or Trustee Cooper was able to vote. So it showed about him. I don't know if he's in the meeting or not.
I'm in there now.
Okay,
Okay,
But the motion did pass. So, all right, we'll move on to individual consideration items. Item A is a contract with ETC Institute for Market Research. First year estimated cost $193,000. It's from August 7th to August 6th of 2025. Jason, any comments?
Yeah, just a few comments. As you'll recall, the trust approved staff negotiating with ETC last month. We were able to successfully conclude those negotiations. And so ETC will once again be our consultant for our customer and our non-rider survey. You all are familiar with ETC and their work. They've been with us for several years. I did want to point out that on your agenda item, on the agenda and in the memo, we have the first year estimated annual cost of $193,000. On the memo, we have an estimated cost there at the bottom of just over $68,000. So the $68,000 is an error in that the total first year cost we're asking the trust for is $193,000. And the reason for that is because we would like to do a new survey that we haven't done in the past this very first year of the contract. That's an origin and destination survey where we will actually, as the name implies, ask people, where are you actually starting your trip, and where are you actually, what is your final destination? And using that data, our hope is to be able to use that extra data that we really haven't ever gathered before, be able to provide that data to our consultant that we're looking forward to in terms of updating our system plan. So all that said, to say the first year cost is higher than the subsequent years. Subsequent years will be closer to the $68,000 or $70,000 that we have listed at the bottom of the memo.
All right. Any questions by any of the trust? Show a motion by Barney and a second by Brent. We'll take a vote now.
Chairman Kaufman? Oh, thank you.
I don't show, did we?
It passed. I saved it and closed it, but it's not showing on the screen. We're gonna have Justin call into IT.
Okay. I guess we're ready for item B. And that's an amendment number 2 to the professional service agreement from DeWitt Investments, DBA Elite Protection Services for streetcar fare inspections and security services, providing services at all the additional locations, and estimated annual cost of $400,000. Is this the same firm we've used before, Jason?
Yeah, we've been using Elite Security now for over a year, primarily on our streetcar operations. And this amendment will actually, as it mentions, allow us to add additional locations for security, primarily the transit center. So our hope is to be able to use Elite more at the transit center than the off-duty police officers that have been helping us with that over the last year. And we do expect some savings by allowing Elite to do more of that security. Again, depending on how many hours they actually work within the next fiscal year, we're estimating anywhere from $85,000 to $125,000 in overall savings by making this change.
All right. I see we have a motion and a second. Motion passed. All right.
Okay.
Item C is scope of work for COPTA's 2021 to 05 conference, comprehensive operational analysis of the fixed route bus system.
Mr. Chairman, could I, before I get into the details of this item, could I ask Haley, our legal counsel, just for a procedural question, since the votes are not visible on the screen, I'm just wondering if we should we be doing a roll call since the votes aren't visible to the public? I know we're seeing who's moving it and who's seconding it, but we're not seeing the actual votes. So I have Haley here. Is this do you mind if I ask real quick? Okay. Okay, so Mr. Chairman, Haley has said if we would like to, absolutely ensure that the votes are on the record, we should probably do roll call vote since the public can't see who's voting.
Okay, that's fine. I'll call for a roll call
If
vote.
that's okay. All right. Okay. So Lisa, can you do a roll call vote on this when we finish up the explanation?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. All righty. So yes, sir. Pardon the interruption. The next item here is it's a pretty exciting project that we're launching. This is just the first step in having a consultant come in and really take a look at our entire bus system. I think we talked a little bit about this during the last trust meeting. We had a transportation committee meeting where we discussed the possibilities of bringing in a consultant to really do another system analysis, just like we did starting back in 2012 when the firm Nelson Nygaard helped us realign our bus system, revisit and enhance some of our frequencies. Well, it's been 8 years really since that project started. A lot has changed within our community. And so thanks to the guidance of the Transportation Committee, the decision was made and recommended that we move forward with hiring a consultant to come in and take another look at our system. And so as you'll see in the memo, basically what they're going to help us do is they're going to help us evaluate our service frequency. They're going to help us evaluate our service hours, our service coverage area, but a lot of other things, all the way down to helping us plan for future facility improvements to bus stop spacing, just a real comprehensive look at our bus system. And the idea is to come out of that, of course, with a plan that we can continue to work incrementally, just like we did the previous one. So with authorization of this item, staff will advertise an RFP, and we will publish that and begin working through that process, and of course bringing all the requests to negotiate and eventually a final contract to the trust for consideration.
All right, any questions by any of the trust? Then are we going to take a roll call
Yes.
vote?
Yes, Chairman Kaufman?
Yes.
Okay. Vice Chairman Sepner, I see that you voted a yay.
Yeah.
Trustee Bryant? Trustee Bryant, do you vote yay?
Yes.
Trustee Cooper, I see that you voted yay. Trustee Ruiz? Trustee Hill?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson, all yay. I think that I just figured out the issue. I apologize.
Well, it is showing on the
Now we
screen.
see it.
Passed.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Item D is, find it here. Resolution adopting state contract for the purchase of CNG floor vans and 2 CNG low floor van to replace 2 vehicles. So seemed like we had an item on the agenda last month for something similar, but these are smaller buses, I guess.
Right. Yeah, last month, the board approved us ordering some new fixed route buses. With approval of this item, we'll be able to order 2 new paratransit buses that will replace 2 of the buses in our fleet that are past their useful life. I would like to share with the trust that we are looking forward to trying these new vehicles. They're a different style than the paratransit vehicles that we currently have in service today, meaning they're a low floor model paratransit van. And there's some advantages to that without getting into all the technical details. The biggest change is the suspension on these vehicles. It's a hydraulic suspension that will actually let the vehicle lower to where we can deploy a ramp for those that are needing mobility assistance to be able to access the vehicle, rather than the style that we have now, which would require basically a lift. So there's less maintenance for us, of course, because we don't have a lift to maintain, a hydraulic lift basically, but in addition to that, just from the standpoint of safety, the ride in these vehicles is supposed to be more stable. With that hydraulic style suspension, it's supposed to prevent the bus from having a little bit of a rocking motion, say when you're going around corners or you're hitting a bump. Not that ours now are uncomfortable. These will just be an improved ride. So anyway, we're looking forward to adding these to the fleet, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to show them to the trustees when they arrive. The other thing I mentioned is just a reminder that we are purchasing these off of state contract rather than our own solicitation.
Jason, does buying them off of the state contract make it go faster? I mean, are there
Yes.
advantages in terms of the ordering time?
Yeah. It speeds the entire procurement process up, because we're not doing our own, we're not having to do our own procurement. So once that state contract is in place, we can essentially order off that state contract anytime we want without really doing any additional procurement on our end. Now with that said, one thing we have talked about as staff and we are working on is, as we order these 2 and evaluate them, if it's a vehicle that we believe is going to be feasible and one we want to recommend to the trust we move forward with for replacing other paratransit vans, because keep in mind we have a fleet of 20 plus paratransit vans, we probably would look at doing our own solicitation, just to see if we can get a better price by guaranteeing a manufacturer a certain number of vehicles over a certain amount of time. So we could still, and probably will still, do a procurement on these type of buses if we transition to them.
And Jason, the funds for this are coming from where?
Yeah, so the source of funds here is our federal grant that we receive. It's a 5339 grant, referred to as bus and bus facilities. And you'll notice the match on the bus and bus facilities money is a little bit different than our typical 5307 that you're accustomed to seeing. This is an 85-15 match. So our local match is only 15% rather than the 20, which is typical with our federal funds.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, Jason, I don't remember when the state contract, or what am I looking for, that language? The state contract. I don't remember us doing that in the past. What makes that an option here?
Yeah, it's just part of the city's, well, there's twofold. It's part of the city's procurement policies that they will adopt the state contract, and the city itself can purchase off of state contracts, because the state too demonstrates that those contracts were competitively bid. And so as a trust of the city, our part of our purchasing policies and procedures reference that we will and can take advantage of city and state contracts. So that's one thing that allows us to purchase off a state contract. The other thing is just the FTA procurement guidelines. They also allow us to purchase off state contract, but it is on us to be able to demonstrate that that state contract, met competitive bidding requirements and contains all the purchase that we do contains all the required federal disclosures. So,
And then could you remind me, what is the useful life of our paratransit vehicles?
useful life is 5 years, but I will tell you, and the credit goes to our maintenance division, that these buses are going on 6 years old. So we've kept them actually longer than 5 years. So we've been able to make them last longer than the useful life is defined by the feds.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I see we have a motion and a second. Everybody can vote. Okay, motion passes. All right, our last item, and as I mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, that we do have a citizen, or we had a citizen to be heard, and I suppose he's still online, and I will remind him after the discussion on this item, he has to press *6 to speak. So Jason, I'll let you cover item E1 and 2, and then we'll have our questions from the trust and the citizen.
Sure. So on item E, as you mentioned, it's two-part. We would like to obviously first hold our official public hearing that we're required to do anytime we make any type of service changes to our bus system. And that's really what the accompanying resolution is about. And that is asking the trust for authorization to make changes to routes 9, 10, 23, 24, and adding some new service, what we're referring to as Route 44, that will provide a limited number of trips during the week to the Social Security office. And so what I'd like to do at this time, if I could, Mr. Chairman, is turn it over to Michael Scroggins, who will provide some details about those route changes for the benefit of the information we need to share during this public hearing. And I might also mention that although today is our official public hearing for these changes, we have had 3 prior community meetings leading up to this public hearing where we've shared the same information in order to gain input from our community and our customers. So I'd like to turn it over to Michael now, if that's okay.
Okay.
Let me pull his presentation up. Okay. All right, presentation visible?
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit about the service changes. And as Administrator Fairbrush had mentioned, this presentation is almost exactly the same as what has been presented 3 previous times. And it was all in a virtual environment as well, as just like this meeting. So this just outlines the public notice and how you can participate in our public meeting process during this process here for the summer service changes. We also provide guidance on how to submit official comments so that they can be included in as part of the final report, and something that will go in our FTA file as part of our review of the service changes that have been are proposed. So we also outlined that there were a few service changes that took effect July 1st in a pilot, from a pilot standpoint, and was later then would be formalized as part of this formal process that we're going through here in the public hearing. And then we also provided just a summary of these changes in a quick, just bullet type point of view. And then we go through each of the service changes. So I'll take you through real quick what those are again. And what we're looking at was the addition of service to the Social Security office. And as a reminder, this would only occur 3 days out of the week, and only when the building is open to the public. So right now that's 4 trips on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And this service is is funded by a public-private partnership funded by the developer itself. Another service change that we are proposing is the elimination or the retirement of Route 50. Route 50 currently runs from 6 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week. So it's got a significant amount of resources committed to this service, yet it has the lowest ridership per service hour of any performing route in the system. So this is a route that we were looking at, and we were hoping back in 2018 when it was rerouted to help serve as a feeder to the streetcar system. But after significant public engagement in regards to community outreach and advertisements, we feel like we could better serve our riding base by redistributing these hours elsewhere into the system. So one of the areas where one of the routes that would benefit from those hours is Route 9. With Route 9, we currently have a 60-minute frequency. It's one of those final routes that have yet to make it to that 30-minute frequency as described in that earlier Nelson-Nygaard report that Jason mentioned earlier. The interesting thing about Route 9 is even though it's 60 minutes, it has one of the highest, or it is the highest performing route in the system at 27.67 riders per service hour, and that's on weekdays. So a pretty significant amount of ridership is occurring there, and we feel like we are better serving that population by improving the frequency on that route. Another service change is the Norman Express, or it's been known as Sooner Express, Route 24. In this proposal, we have changed the service schedule slightly, and we have added additional service trips between Norman and Oklahoma City. We have seen this, and this has been proposed in previous ETC survey results, in that this is one of those routes that has a higher potential to earn more ridership if we were to provide additional service to it. So this is one that is data-driven, that we're hoping to see additional ridership occur as employers are coming into the Oklahoma City area. So we are taking it from 2 trips provided by Oklahoma City and 4 by Norman, up to a total now of 9 round trips. As you know, over the years, we've really tried to make the service as convenient as possible. But making it convenient also means making it as easy to understand as possible. And one of those things that we can do to help with that is to create clock-face headways. One of the routes that has not been on a clock-face headway for some time is Route 23. And because of that, just a 5-minute variance, we have misconnections occurring along several different routes along Route 23. And keep in mind, it does not come to the transit center. And so with it being one of our more popular routes, it's really important that we help provide those connections in a timely way so that they're not waiting for the next route now another 30 or an hour, depending on the route itself. And this would also help our operators to maintain a better schedule by giving them a little more time, from going from 25 minutes to 30 minutes. So it seems like it might be counterproductive to do this, but in reality, we're creating a better experience for our customers by creating a more reliable network with Route 23, as well as better connections for those Route 10, Route 7, Route 8, Route 5, Route 18, Route 3, Route 2, and eventually 9, 11, and 38 at the Reno Mini Hub. Another important component to this service change for Route 10 is helping to create, again, that reliability in regards to what service predictions are being made available to customers. Currently, this is a 30-minute route, and it would continue to be a 30-minute route, except from about 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock. We're looking to modify the route slightly by adding 6 minutes in that time period. And what's really happening is we're creating a more predictable schedule, so that way, as traffic increases during that time of day, we're able to maintain a schedule and provide a reliable service for those who are using that service. We have received feedback over the years from a few individuals who continue to struggle to make connections with Route 10 because of the increased traffic along this route. And so by adding these 6 minutes, we'll be able to create a schedule that is going to be reliable in our real-time announcements that we publish. And so that would be in Google or the Transit app, any of those apps where they're using that to predict when the next vehicle will arrive. And this will make that more reliable and will also be more realistic. The thing that is also, it may seem counterproductive, but again, if traffic is causing that to occur, then what we want to make sure is what we're providing to our customers is the most accurate prediction of when the next bus will arrive. Currently, if we don't do this, it's showing that a bus will arrive when it won't due to traffic and other conditions on the road. So this is one of those that we're looking at different ways to attempt to improve the on-time performance. And this is the one that would have the least amount of impact to the overall route, as we looked at previously in other discussions. And that wraps up all of the service changes that were proposed. We did provide an official comment card. Those were available at the Transit Center or online through a packet. You could also just send us an email at embarkok@okc.gov, or you could even just tweet us comments, which we've had some do. And that really pretty much has been one of the primary ways that a lot of people communicate with us regarding the route. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions that anyone may have about the proposed service changes.
Before I ask for the citizen to be heard, are there any questions by any of the trustees?
I'd like to hear from the citizen before I speak, if that's okay.
Okay. Lisa, can you assist us in that? And I reminded him to, if he's online to speak, he needs to press *6.
Mr. Moses, are you on the line?
I am now.
Okay.
I am now. There we go. Good morning. Just a quick little comment. Overall, I support making these changes. What bothers me is that you're talking about making significant changes to the 24, and there's not an idea of what the schedule might be in terms of time frame, or in terms of like what times these trips will be. Is that something that's going to be announced over the weekend, or what's the deal on that? But overall, I do support making these changes. I am for a more efficient system. I just feel like, 2 days, that's not a lot of time to prepare.
Staff like to comment?
Absolutely. We do have that schedule, and we can send that to you directly if you'd like. As noted on the slide, I'm trying to get it back to that.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we have identified that schedule. And as I said, I could send that to you directly, but we do know that it's from 6:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's this proposed service span. And those times that you are used to have shifted just slightly. And you'll see that there's more options in the morning and in the evening.
Can stop share. And then.
Okay, yeah, and if you would please send that to me, that would be great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Trustees, James?
Yeah, thank you. Michael, when will those be available for the public, for like as Jeremy was requesting for him as an individual? When will that?
So as soon as we have a final on that, those will start being published this afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just few things. One, I'm very excited about the connection to the social security office. I think this is very important. I don't know if you or Trustee Johnson wanted to speak to the history of why this service wasn't there. I know Laura is pretty good at explaining that. But if you'd like to, Jason, or sorry, Michael, that would be helpful too. It says Jason under your name now, Michael.
Yeah. I am happy to defer, but I can provide what feedback we have as well.
Well, I'll go ahead and speak to it just briefly. When the Social Security office was proposed to be relocated to its current location from Shepherd Mall, we did express considerable concern about that relocation because of the lack of available bus service there. It moved outside of the COTPA service where the routes ran at that point. And so the developer was required by Social Security to provide bus service to that location. And when they initially did it, Edmond could provide that bus service more effectively, or cost effectively, I should say, than COTPA. I'm happy too that we're bringing this back under Oklahoma City's service, but I will say that I just would implore developers when they're making considerations about public services, especially public services that affect our citizens who are transit dependent, like Social Security, that they would consider the available transit system in that decision, that it's a really critical point, not just for the people who are served by those offices, but also for the people who work in them. So that's my 2 cents, Trustee Cooper.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that backstory and the perspective, and you've helped me better understand it over the course of my time as a trustee. And I don't know if it's because Shepherd is in Ward 2 and up right at the border of Ward 6, but I definitely heard Ward 2 residents express similar concerns about access. So I think this is a wonderful step in the right direction. The other things I would note, I do overall support where we're heading here with the Reno Crosstown. I think that's good, moving from 60-minute frequency to 30. I think the 2 areas where I'm still, hesitant, and I hope that the study that we passed earlier is going to help us address these. But the first one is Portland. I wish Councilperson Greenwell was here, because we had similar ideas to what I was expressing, which was what would it look like to study a transit only lane on Portland between 23rd and 36th, for instance, to help improve the frequency. And this came back to my mind, everybody, because so we had that transit meeting discussion several weeks ago, but then this week, City Council approved a street enhancement project for Portland. and to try and improve pedestrian access for the neighborhoods to the park and vice versa. And I'm still really interested in studying that particular corridor in terms of walkability, bike infrastructure, and just knowing that this is a route where the bus has experienced not being able to perform at the frequency that we'd all would like to see. So this is a particular street that I would like to have us keep our eyes on, especially in that study. The other one that where I'm really worried, and I'd like for that study to have as its notes is 23rd Street. I understand that this is going to provide a more accurate reflection for our customers in terms of when they can expect the bus to arrive. For me, 23rd Street is such an opportunity for the city to even, move beyond the 30-minute frequency and achieve that industry standard of 15 minutes. A couple things have happened since we all last spoke at the Transit Committee. One is I sat with LaShawn Thompson to discuss just traffic stops across the city. And 23rd Street is just, looking at the map, there's so many traffic stops. And I'm guessing it's because of the, sorry, my phone is deciding that it wants to let everyone know that it's got some messages. But the 23rd Street, there's so much traffic there, probably because there's such a revitalization in the Uptown District, the SEO District, the Asian District, OCU. And I think that more people would, the more reliable that transit system is on 23rd, the more likely I think choice riders will use that transit system either to get to work or for recreation, like going to these bars, these restaurants, the shops, etc. And I think keeping in mind several upcoming projects, right? There's the street enhancement project for 23rd Street that's underway in terms of finalizing its concept right now. And that's going to look at walkability, etc. MAPS 4 looks just to the east at the Clara Looper corridor on 23rd, all the way to I-35. And then the Mayor's Beautification Project looks at the OCU corridor from Uptown all the way up to Penn. And then MAPS 4 also said, how do we better connect the Windsor District from Meridian to the urban core, so to Penn. So I just think that that whole street over the next 5 to 10 years of our lives it's just gonna shift. And I think we need to be ready to anticipate as a public transit system that shift, and that shift specifically as it relates to pedestrians, people using bikes for transportation, and people using public transit for transportation to move along all the different institutions that define 23rd Street. So that's very important to me. I would go as far as to say it's a priority for me. So I just wanted to keep that on everyone's radar, because I think some people will see the shift over from 30 to 36 and think we're going in the opposite direction of where we need to be. Whereas what we're really doing is just showing everybody like, hey, this is the reality in which we're living right now. But I felt it's very important that I voice those concerns, but then also voice that hope for what this corridor could be. So yeah, that's that.
Okay, James, thank you. Any other questions? If not, we need a motion to approve item E.
Barney makes a motion to approve item E.
Right, and a second.
I'll second it.
Do we need a roll call?
Yes, Chairman Kaufman,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Setner,
Aye.
Chairman Cooper. I'm sorry, Trustee Cooper,
Don't do that to me. I can't do that. Yes.
I'm sorry, Trustee Bryant,
Aye.
Trustee Ruiz,
Aye.
Trustee Hill,
Aye.
and Trustee Johnson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes. Our next item is ratification of payroll and vendor claims for the period July 7th through July 28th. If no questions on any of those vendor claims, then I'd have a motion to receive. Do we need a voice for the motion?
I'll move it. Steve.
I'll second it, Laura.
And then I guess, do we still need a voice, a roll call?
I don't think we do. Lisa, we're back online with PrimeGov, correct?
It looks like it.
Yes, we're back online. I apologize again. This is a very difficult technology meeting. I apologize to all the trustees.
All right, motion passes. All right, our 12-month budget to actual, our year ended June 30th. I noticed I did receive the letter from our CPA firm that they're getting ready to start or are starting on the audit.
Mhm.
Are there any particular ideas or on the budget you'd like to express?
Yeah, there are a few items I'd like to draw the trustees' attention to, and keep in mind this is our budget to actual through 12 months, and I would just say through 12 months of the fiscal year, as of the month closing around mid-July. But when you do the year-end close, there's going to be other transactions that not a lot of significant transactions, but the numbers will change slightly as we close the year out, and accounting services prepares a annual financial report for the trust. So if I could, to point out a couple things that are in the works that you may see in the final numbers versus what you have here today, directing your attention to page 2 on the transportation operations. A couple of comments I wanted to share is one, looking at the overall, actually the overall operating loss as indicated. You'll notice we had 347,000 more in expenses than we did revenue for our transportation operations, but would also direct your attention up to the revenues, particularly the state government subsidy revenue line. You'll notice that shows to be under budget by about 350,000. And that's really an issue of timing. We did receive our full state subsidy. However, we received that last subsidy on June the 27th. It actually wasn't deposited by Treasury until right after the 1st of July. So that's why that revenue is not showing up. Essentially, if you add that revenue back in, then the operating loss is no longer there. We're more in a break-even type situation in terms of revenue versus expenses. The other thing I wanted to draw the trustees' attention to, because we have talked a lot about how we're managing our CARES funds, and I believe when we first started our plan for spending those CARES funds, we committed to about $3 million worth of CARES reimbursement in this fiscal year. And in turn, we would take about $3 million less in the general fund subsidy. And so I wanted to let you know that although your financial here reflects $2.8 million of CARES reimbursement to date. We do have another 112,000 outstanding for FY20 directly related to CARES. So when you combine that outstanding draw that we will be receiving for FY20, the number is going to be closer to 2.9 million, just shy of 3 million. So we're right on track with the plan that we had, shared with the trustees. And then a similar comment on federal grants, the revenue line above that, you'll notice we're $1.3 million under budget, but we do have, again, some of our year-end draws that we're processing. We won't close that full $1.3 million gap, but we have several $100,000 of federal grant revenue that's outstanding that is really FY20 expenses that we're being reimbursed for. So,
Jason,
yes.
Jason, I guess question. So it looks as the way it looks right now, we're utilizing some fund balance, but based on what you're saying, when we actually close out the June 30, we will more than likely add to fund balance.
Yeah, we'll add to fund balance. It won't be a substantial amount, but probably in the neighborhood of a couple $100,000. No more than 5, I'm certain.
The word is add versus use.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted. Okay, thank you.
So that concludes my comments on the transportation operations. A quick comment on page 3, without getting into a lot of detail. I did just want to direct the trustees' attention to the financials for the Norman operation. You'll notice that, and we've mentioned this before, but now that we're wrapping up towards the end of the year and the revenue from Norman is coming in to offset our expenses, we are now showing a situation where our revenues from that operation exceed our expenses. And just as a reminder, with the contract for FY21, we were able to negotiate an opportunity to bill the city of Norman in advance so that, we're in a situation where ideally our revenues are exceeding, or we have our revenues to support our expenses, but before we actually have the expense. And then on page 4, this is our parking operations. Again, directing your attention, I'll just start, if I could, by directing your attention to the operating income line. You'll notice we have a positive income there of $884,000 reflected on this budget to actual. However, there's a couple of things I'd like to mention. One, with regards to expenses, we do have one more Republic invoice to pay, and as you know, that is in the neighborhood of $200,000 or so a month. So that operating income that you see by the time we wrap up and finalize our books for the year is probably going to be closer to $600,000 to $700,000 versus the $884 that you see there. In terms of revenues, we continue to see revenues coming in under budget. Not surprising considering the economic environment that we're in. But I do have a little bit of good news in terms of trends that I wanted to report, and this is reflected in your parking report as well. We continue to really struggle with generating event revenue. We virtually generated no event revenue. But again, on the positive side of things, the transient revenue that you see there, this is people just parking in our garages for short-term occasions. Maybe they have business downtown for a day or for an hour. We are seeing an uptick in our transient revenue in June. We actually had about 32,000 in transient revenue. That was up from 11,000 the previous month. So I think that's an encouraging indicator that there's a little bit more business occurring downtown and people are parking in our garages to conduct that business. My final comments will be on page 7. This is the streetcar operation. A couple things to point out here. Again, if we just look at the revenues, Did want to mention that you'll notice the general fund subsidy exceeded budget. So we basically requested 370,000 in additional general fund subsidy for the streetcar operation to offset some shortfalls we had in other revenue, primarily streetcar fare revenue. Obviously, we know our ridership has been down significantly the last quarter of the fiscal year. But overall, we were trending to finish under budget even prior to March. And then the other was the payments from the MAPS 3 sales tax. We had about 300,000 budgeted that we anticipated we would receive for spare parts that were part of the original launch of the project. We ended up really only being able to recoup about half of what we had budgeted there. So that's the reason for the required additional general fund subsidy. The final comment here on the streetcar operations is to make sure you're aware that although the operating income shows to be a positive 300,000 for the end of the fiscal year, we do have one outstanding Herzog invoice. Those invoices, or that invoice is going to be, just shy there of 300,000. So most of that operating income surplus that you see will be consumed by that last Herzog invoice. So keeping consistent with Trustee Bryant's observations on the transportation division, here on the streetcar operations, we show we're adding to fund balance on this budget to actual, but in reality, we'll add much less than what is shown there once we pay that final bill. That will conclude my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions by any of the trustees?
Yes. Hi again. So Jason, if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks like when it comes to the streetcar advertising is no one's pulling out. They're weathering the storm with us. Is that a correct interpretation of that?
Yes, that is. We've been very fortunate on our sponsorship revenue for our streetcar operations. Now, in terms of overall advertising for streetcar, our transit system in its entirety, we are definitely struggling a bit on just the more traditional bus advertising, and we're in dialogue now with Houck, our advertising vendor, about negotiating some changes to their contract or possibly looking at some forbearance options with regards to their minimum guarantee. So that is forthcoming to the trust, and I'm not trying to get off subject there, but there are some issues with advertising overall. But with streetcar, to your point, we've weathered the last 3 months pretty well.
Okay, and we'll be discussing more at length the bus conversation in an upcoming meeting.
Yeah, we anticipate bringing a contract amendment to the trust that will change. If nothing else, it will likely change the guaranteed minimum amount that we require from our advertising vendor. Our contract basically says, hey, there's a guaranteed minimum amount that we expect, and then anything above and beyond, we collect as well. But so we'll bring that to the trust.
And then, yeah, I'll save my other questions for when we learn a little bit more about ridership. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. We're just about there.
All right. I see we do have a motion and second to receive our financial reports. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you. We have 3 program reports: transit, parking, and mobility management. First is our transit system program update.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to turn it over, if I could, to Chip Nolan to provide our transit system update. And he and Jesse Rush, our streetcar operations manager, are going to co-present here, really with the idea of providing the trust and an overall view of ridership for both the bus system and the streetcar system for FY20. Turn it over to Mr. Nolan now. Nope, hang on, I'll pull up the presentation first. Okay, you have the transit ridership review presentation visible on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Good morning. I'm going to talk about ridership a little bit today. First, I give a quick thank you to Carrie and Sam. They helped me compile and report our bus ridership, and Carrie was a big help in putting this presentation together, as well as marketing. So thank you to Caitlin and Ty as well. First, I'm going to talk about a quick overview of the 2 years that we're comparing. For fiscal year 2019, we had 329 days of service, and then we started Sunday service halfway through the fiscal year in January. And a couple of things to note on FY20. We had 365 days of service. Most of those additional days are because we added holiday service starting on Labor Day, and then we had Sunday service for the full year. And then for the months of April, May, and June, we had 45 days of reduced service where we did not provide weeknight service, which is service Monday through Friday from 7 to midnight. So you'll see those reflected in the ridership numbers. So first, weekday total ridership. You can see that July through February, ridership was very in line with the previous year, slight uptick, and then you can see a pretty dramatic decline in the last 4 months of the fiscal year. And you'll see that slight decrease in March, the lowest in April, and then it starts to increase again in May and June. And you'll see that pattern continue on the rest of these slides. This is weekday daily average ridership, very similar to the previous slide. July through February, very similar to the previous year, and then a pretty drastic drop off the last 4 months. Looking at weeknight total ridership, you can see July through February at a nice uptick in ridership of about 7%. And then the total ridership drop off was a little bit more dramatic because, again, there was some days where we did not operate this service. Look at weeknight average ridership. You see that same ridership increase, and then the daily average ridership drop off isn't quite as dramatic. And then lastly, we'll look at weekend ridership. You can see the total ridership is a lot higher because we had a full year of Sunday service. And then the last 4 months, the ridership drop off wasn't quite as dramatic. And if you see June drop off there, that's because there was an extra Saturday and an extra Sunday in the month of May. And so that total ridership was a little bit higher in May. But then when you look at the weekend daily average ridership, you see that kind of pattern of increased daily ridership for April, May, and June again. And again, you see a slight decrease in July through February here in this last slide. That's mostly because there's been a little bit less demand on Sunday. The Sunday ridership is doing well, but there's just a little bit less demand on Sundays than there is on Saturdays. And so that concludes my overview of bus ridership for FY20. I'll turn it over to Jesse.
Alrighty. Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, trustees.
Morning.
Hope everyone's staying safe and healthy out there. Chip, as always, has done a wonderful job of providing an update for our bus ridership. Before we jump into the streetcar year-end review for ridership, I wanted to sneak this beautiful picture into the presentation. So this picture here is from a few weeks ago when we got the streetcar out in the middle of the night, and musical artist JB, we helped him produce a music video using the streetcar, inside the streetcar and outside the streetcar. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks for that to be released. Similar to Chip's presentation, I wanted to take a quick second to compare the two fiscal years. So fiscal year 19, that actually service began for us on December 14th of 2018 and ended June 30th of 2019. So we had a total of 199 service days. That 199 days included 141 weekdays and 57 weekends. We did have 6 days of reduced service. So the first one was February 2nd. That was a Sunday. And so that was right after we launched and right before we started issuing or having fares introduced. And so we took that Sunday to get everything, make sure it was calibrated and ready to go into service. And then the next was 5 days in May. So from May 15th to May 20th, we had Robinson, the Robinson closure due to the window washing incident while they secured the building there. And then for fiscal year 20, so that began on July 1st of 2019, ended on June 30th of 2020. We had a total of 366 total service days, and that includes an extra day because it was a leap year. So we had a total of 262 weekdays, including 10 holidays, 104 weekend days, and we had 79 reduced service days in the fiscal year 20, most of that due to coronavirus. So on March 19th, we reduced service to end at 10 p.m. Normally our service runs until midnight, Monday through Thursday, 2 a.m. Fridays and Saturdays, and 10 p.m. on Sundays. So beginning on March 19th, we cut that back to ending at 10 p.m. And then on April 13th, we pulled that back even further to ending at 7 p.m. And again, all of this is due to the coronavirus because the lack of activity downtown, right? So I'm sure anyone working downtown could agree to that during those periods of time, the activity downtown was very minimal. However, on June 5th, we returned to our standard hours of operation, like I mentioned earlier, Monday through Thursday, ending at midnight, Fridays and Saturdays ending at 2 a.m., and then on Sundays ending at 10 p.m. All right, so we're going to jump into the comparisons here. So I'm going to make sure that I walk you through the slide here, make sure everyone understands it. So on this graph, blue represents FY19, which I mentioned earlier. December 14th was our first day of service, running through June 30th. Orange represents FY20, which begins July 2019 and ends on June 30th of 2020. As we enter into the data shown, you can immediately notice that we show a decrease this fiscal year when compared to last fiscal year. One thing I do want to notice is that we have yet to have 2 months similar. So we haven't had a chance to really compare apples to apples yet, right? So we'll focus on the right half of the graph where we're able to actually compare the months. So we'll start with December. So December of 2018 was our opening month. And in 2.5 weeks, we saw a little over 40,000 riders. So incredible month for us, right? So, but December is a difficult month to compare because we've got the opening month, and then the next month we've got normal service, right? So we've seen some decrease there. January of 2019, we were still riding the wave of the opening and saw over 25,000 riders. February is our closest month of comparison because February of 2019, we were charging fares, we had normal service hours, and that's the same for February of 2020. I do want to mention that, December, January, and February are our coldest, historically coldest months in Oklahoma. And it's pretty common to see reduction in ridership in those months. Then we get into spring and summer months where our ridership begins to increase. You'll notice in March 2019, we begin to increase in ridership, and again in April. And then May of 2019, you'll see that there is a slight decrease. Again, this is due to dropping service for a week there due to the Robinson closure. And then in June of 2019, we saw a large increase, and this was mainly due to the beta conference that was going on downtown. We saw a huge increase of ridership with the conference that was downtown. So like I mentioned earlier, you can see there's a decrease this fiscal year when compared to last fiscal year, but we have yet to have 2 months where they are really comparable. Moving on to weekday daily average comparison. You'll see in the following graphs that this trend is pretty reflective throughout all the different types of ridership graphs that we have. Here you can see that the first 3 months of 2020, when compared to 2019, we've seen a 57% decrease. Again, 2019, we were riding the wave of our grand opening. When comparing the last 4 months of fiscal year, we'll notice that 2020 is drastically down. And this is, of course, due to the global pandemic that we're still currently experiencing. The weekend ridership numbers show a similar story. However, February of 2020, we see a 35% increase. On your slide here, that is a typo. So in February, we do have an increase of 35% over the previous year. This was anticipated that we would see continued growth over the following months, but then coronavirus hit. And so this next graph is our weekend daily average numbers. These numbers reflect the similar info that we've seen in the previous slides. And this is our weekly total comparison. So this graph shows the cumulative ridership totals for our system. 2019 was a great year for us, and we saw an average monthly ridership of a little over 30,000, and we were anticipating that growth into 2020. And then coronavirus hit. So this is a slide that shows our COVID-19 weekly ridership. A couple of milestone dates here is so March 11th was when the Thunder game was scheduled to happen and abruptly stopped, right? And so I think that's really when Oklahoma City took notice of the coronavirus and what was going on. March 16th was when the mayor issued his emergency proclamation. And then you can see the pretty drastic decline there until we get more into April. So throughout all of coronavirus, we've had 79 days of reduced service. And I mentioned earlier, March 19th was when our service ended at 10 p.m. April 13th, we pulled that back to 7 p.m. However, on June 5th is when we returned to normal service hours. And if you'll notice, kind of as we start getting closer to our current date, you can see that the ridership is week over week, we're seeing that increase. And this past Saturday, we saw over 900 riders ride the streetcar. So we're very happy to see that. We're happy to see the activity going on downtown again, and we hope to see that increase. That concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to take any questions. Chip is just around the corner right here, so he is also available, but happy to take any questions.
All right, any questions by any of the trustees? It's a pretty comprehensive report on ridership.
Yeah, I appreciate
what has happened because of what's going on in the world, and it looks like we're trying to recover a little bit. So,
do we have a similar report with what Spokie's was during this time as well?
We don't have one available, but we can certainly get that together for sure.
That would be helpful. So y'all know I'm a big advocate of the streetcar. Have always been a big advocate. Same with buses. It seems like there's been a more precipitous drop by about 30% in streetcar ridership versus bus. That's just something that's on my mind. And I've also expressed my concerns about the loss of Spokie's. I don't know. I'm kind of curious about the ridership of the streetcar, that drop, I mean, just precipitous drop versus a drop in the bus system, but by about 44%. And I'm just wondering, do we have any sense of who our riders are who are, sticking with the bus? Who it seems like there's more people who might need that than need the streetcar right now.
Yeah. Would you like me to make a few comments, or was that with other trustees?
Really, I'm just thinking aloud right now
Yeah.
about reviewing this, but I'm really curious about who's riding the bus versus who's riding the streetcar.
Well, I think the best the best indicator we have of that is referring back to our last customer service survey, and we have a pretty good data set there that really I think tells the story. It tells the story that the streetcar is primarily used by people that work downtown, visitors to downtown. The degree of transit dependency between streetcar and bus, the riders that use streetcar versus bus is, it's vastly different. So we have a whole lot, a large amount of our customers on the bus side, transit dependent. Most of our customers on the streetcar side are not. I think that's one of the largest determining factors on why you see different ridership trends. So in my mind, if we have more customers on the streetcar system that have other choices for transportation, or they say are only downtown for working or entertainment, well, then with the slowdown in activity downtown and a lot of employers not even having their employees come to the office, we don't have that base ridership. We don't have those individuals to generate those trips. On the bus side, though, and I think it just speaks to the need for our services. On the bus side, we know a lot of our customers are transit dependent, or they have limited access to vehicles. However, we still have essential trips. They still have essential trips that they need to make, whether it be, as we know, to get to work or to get to medical appointments or to shop. And so, just due to those factors, the ridership on the bus did not drop near like what it did on streetcar, and it's coming back faster than what the streetcar ridership is. The data that you just saw was through the end of 20, but I can tell you even through July here, the first month of this fiscal year, our ridership on the bus side is on some days, around 7,000 trips compared to 10,000 during our normal operating time. So it's coming back pretty strong on the bus side. Sorry, that was a lot of detail, but those are just like my general observations.
No need to apologize at all. That's exactly the context I was requesting. Thank you. And I think it'll be helpful to hear what the Spokies ridership numbers were during the same period in the way we just saw here with streetcar and with the bus. And I guess, the reason why I'm asking these questions is, I've been biking daily, as I think I've mentioned before, for both my physical and mental health since that March 15th moment when I couldn't go to the gym anymore. And I bike from Paseo through Mesta, through Heritage, through Midtown, to downtown, sometimes as far as Capitol Hill. And I've seen that steep decline in the streetcar ridership. But just anecdotally, I saw people using our Spokies bike share program. And I saw, a reduction in bus services, but I didn't see it as steeply as I saw with the streetcar. And then the data is kind of bearing this out, but I don't really like speaking anecdotally when it comes to the Spokies. I'd like to kind of know, I like the data just as you all do. And I guess, this is kind of still part of my concern about the Spokies loss from this year's fiscal budget is, I think as the country has, and people don't have to agree with me on this, but this is just my assessment of what I'm seeing around the country right now. But because of the pandemic, we're seeing this shift from, for instance, indoor dining. And we're seeing in our cities follow this trend where how can we use sidewalks? How can we use parking spaces, street space for outdoor dining so that we're better assisting our, our restaurant industry to be able to remain open, have folk with masks, but be outside where the virus spreads less likely. And then you're able to better do those social distancing measures outside in a way that one cannot indoors. And I think with that is becoming a kind of realization that, having sidewalks in one's neighborhood is important for one's physical and mental health. I think a lot of people are, getting out of their homes right now where they've been sheltering in place, where the home space environment has shifted to a workspace environment. So we got to get out of that and get outdoors. And I think bike infrastructure and whether it's bike lanes or whether it's a bike share program, I think that also is part of this moment where people, just have a desire to be outside, both for their physical and mental health. So I don't know, I'm just trying to think through this moment and how we as a transit provider can meet this moment and speak to this moment. So that's why I've had that concern about the loss of Spokies. It's why when I am biking and I see that steep decline in the streetcar, it just raises questions for me of where could we be prioritizing our funds during this moment.
If I could make make another comment on the streetcar, one of the things that we've really tried to do as staff and make recommendations to trustees with regards to streetcar service is, knowing our customer base is different, knowing there's, limited activity downtown, but also knowing, the importance of being able to demonstrate resiliency as a transit system, resiliency, for all major modes. And of course, streetcar is one of those major modes. And looking to the future, very optimistic about the future, the fact that we have, the convention center coming online soon. Looking forward, hopefully, to, the upcoming basketball season, whatever shape and form that might take. We as staff, and I know we've shared this with trustees, we feel very committed to demonstrating that resiliency so that people know customers, individuals from out of town that are looking to potentially book conventions, they know that transit system, that streetcar system, that downtown circulator is going to be there to operate, and it's not, unpredictable. So we've really tried to guard against, any perception that, the service isn't resilient or reliable. So we've really been, again, trying to push to keep as much service as we can on the street to demonstrate that resiliency. The other thing I was going to mention is I do have the Spokies ridership at least through May that I can share with you. This was included in the last board report, and I can share that with you right now if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I'd be interested. That was probably when it was that's when the pandemic was really.
Yeah, so this is, and again, I just, trying to answer your question as quickly as possible, and we can certainly get the June numbers, but we did see, an increase in May of Spokies ridership. You're looking at roughly probably 1,200 trips in May, but we see that every year just with the change of weather. You can see it, trended up in 18 during that time period, trended up a little bit during 2019. The other thing we have to think about is, I believe at that time, that was also about the time I believe the Lime scooters were pulled off the street for a short period of time. Those did come back. I believe it was in June again, we'll get the data. But I guess for a brief time there in the May, June time period, Spokey's may have been the only, you know, option for that type of micro mobility, with the scooters being off the street. And I know that is really our biggest competitor, and probably the single biggest reason you see this decline in ridership in 2019 was the scooters.
So if I'm reading this sentence correct, it turns out that my anecdotal interpretation is pretty in line with staff, where it says staff attributes the increase to the demand for alternative transportation that provides for social distancing and the need for exercise while area gyms remain closed. Like, yeah, I think there is a shift that is happening right now, and that's why I was gravely concerned, as I've said previously, about the loss of Spokey's at this moment. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
And again, we too, we're reluctant, as you know, to take any service off the street. But again, we approached it as an interruption, a short-term suspension, as mentioned last time. And I believe we even shared some photos. I mean, we have all of the assets. They're secured. They're ready to be deployed when budget conditions, improve.
Thank you.
I just think we all need to, and as Jason said, remain optimistic, because things will get better. And once downtown activity picks up, once the Thunder basketball, once concerts, once conventions, we're going to see a marked increase in particular. So, all right. We have two other reports. Let's see if we can make them a little shorter than this last one, but the parking report.
All right, I'll pull up the parking report, and Corey's ready for the condensed version.
Okay.
Okay. Are you seeing the parking services report?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning. The report will be brief.
All right. Good. Thank you.
These pictures were taken a few days ago. You can see some beam cleanup being done. They're literally going in and chiseling and sanding joints in order to make them as smooth as possible, and filling in small imperfections. That's being done throughout the garage. This image just happens to be on the roof of the garage. Here's our elevated walkway to the convention center. You can see the convention center has installed the doors and the walls. Our responsibility was the floor connecting to their bridge. Image of the hallway to the parking operator's office. AC units had since been installed and we're in a testing mode for the AC units. Northeast staircase roofing system. By the bollards, there'll be a glass wall or storefront. No doors. Everything's sloped so that the rain will stay inside the garage and not in the stairwells. Image of the roofing system for the southwest staircase with the elevators, of course. Inside one of the elevator cabs, yes, they're still being built. You can see the opaque glass behind on the rear wall. An image of some of the colored glass from the elevator shaft, and then the effect we were looking forward to through the opaque elevator glass. I will note that that image was taken on a cloudy day, so the effect is not as cool as possible. And then our vertical cables, all 1,300 plus of them. You can see the last few still need to be installed at the far east side of the garage. Yesterday, they were complete when I was on site. And that's my presentation. Any questions?
Well, any questions? All right, Corey, thank you.
You bet.
And we have one last report, mobility management services update.
Okay, are you seeing the mobility management presentation?
Not yet.
Okay. How about now?
Okay.
All right. Here is Marilyn.
Good morning, everyone. It's been a while since we've seen each other, so even though it's virtually, welcome and it's good to see everyone. I want to give you a brief overview of how we ended up in 2020. Overall, we were down at the end of the year in the spring due to COVID, obviously about 23.2%. So our total trips for all services was about a little shy of 35,000. As you can see, these are our three main components: our daily meal site trips, our weekly shopping trips, which serves 19 different routes, and then our on-demand non-emergency medical transportation. Obviously, the largest decrease that we saw as a result of COVID came with our daily meal sites. That was because they closed the congregate meal sites due to COVID. What we did to make sure that the seniors were still receiving their nutrition was to partner with the Oklahoma County Senior Nutrition and Community Action Agency to deliver a week's worth of flash frozen meals to those seniors that we would normally transport back and forth daily to get their noon meal. So by the end of April, we've done over 3,000 meals. I'm waiting on the numbers for May and June, so we'll have those to you soon. The least decline we saw was in medical trips. That's an urgent need. There was a small decline, about 20% of the decline was in medical, and that's because of the virtual medicine, but we are still seeing significant usage of our dialysis routes and the routes that run to the cancer treatment centers. The other big thing we did to respond to COVID was partner with the regional food bank to deliver food boxes, monthly food boxes. This is a service that has gone on long before COVID. It's done on site, and the seniors often take our transportation services to pick up their boxes. Well, obviously, we didn't want them doing that during COVID, so we transitioned a bit, used some funding that we were able to secure. And so far, we have delivered over 600 food boxes through the end of June, and we are getting ready to do another round here in August and just shortly. As you know, we do a survey every year. Our goal normally is to try for 200 participants, but since we weren't being able to see these seniors face to face and it all had to be done on the phone, our goal was to get 100 participants. We got a 63% response rate of the 100 phone calls we made. We found out that about 84% use our service at least 3 times a month. And they felt that almost 90% say they get out of the house more because they can use Embark Senior Transportation Services. And across the board, 100% of our respondents said Embark Senior Transportation is the reason that they are able to remain in home and not have to go to an assisted living center. So that, I think that in and of itself, that single statement captures pretty much everything that we do. As you can see from what's on your screen, they were 100% satisfied with the polite drivers, 95% satisfied with trip times and availability, and 100% satisfaction was good to excellent. We did not receive any poor or extremely poor ratings from anyone. So we were really thrilled about that. One of the big things that we do to get the word out about our services is outreach. Obviously, that's a very difficult thing for us to do in a social distancing world and a pandemic. We did have some events planned in the spring, the Informed Senior Seminar, Disability Awareness Day, Senior Day at the State Capitol. All these events were canceled and held virtually. One of the things that we really need the trustees and the general public's help with is outreach, reaching these seniors and make sure that they know these services are available to them and we are still operating during the COVID. So one of the things that we've worked with marketing is August, we will be doing a huge social media push on the Embark social media accounts targeted at seniors. And I really encourage those of you that follow our account, if you would share those on your social media posts, that would help us tremendously. Oh, wait, there we go. So for our CDGB funded program, these are our totals, how we ended the year for 1920. We did not see the big drop in ridership or demand for this. The bus passes were still very much needed. We made some adjustments to the way we distribute those to promote social distancing, but we are still doing that. As a reminder, this is a program through 60 social service agencies. We've actually only saw about a 1% drop due to COVID in the demand. And we just finished up the application process for the current fiscal year, and this program is going to continue. Probably the single most COVID impact we saw was with our Embark Well program. As you'll recall, we piloted this in July of 2019, and it was very popular. It's serving 6 senior mobility, senior wellness centers across the city. Obviously, many of those closed during the pandemic and are only partially reopened at this point. We did start the Embark Well service. It did not run in March, April, or May at all. We did start back up June 1st. As you can see, we've only done 22 rides. That's about doubled what we saw, about double in July this year. So it is picking back up slowly. We're staying in touch with the agencies and the destination locations to make sure that we can do that. So our Climb Ride program, this is the Arnold Transportation Innovation Grant. We have moved this program to a full launch phase at this point. And I'm really excited to let the trustees know that we celebrated our first successful family reunification in this program in July of 2020. So we have our first official program graduate that completed the entire Climb Ride program and has successfully reunified their family through the foster care system. Finally, we have transportation in Canadian County. As you know, we launched this in January of 2020. We had a whopping 2 months of service before COVID hit us. Obviously, it dropped to nearly zero. We've seen each month since we've slowly reopened, we're seeing ridership in Canadian County is about doubling. As a reminder, right now in Canadian County, the only type of transportation that we have is for seniors for medical appointments. Our goal is throughout 2021 to look at that service and to look at the needs in Canadian County and see if there's something else that we could do. But until then, we're going to focus on the medical right now because that seems to be the biggest need there. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, any questions?
Yes, a comment and a request. Comment is, as always, Marilyn, thank you a million times over, and all the staff associated with your work. Y'all need to hear that. It's important. I've had a couple Ward 2 residents reach out via email during shelter in place who are not even seniors, who are concerned about seniors and making sure they have transit options. So I just really wanted to take the time to, in public, share my...
We appreciate that. We really do. We truly do. And I appreciate your support and the fact that you are so active in referring people to us. I've actually had 2 really positive conversations from citizens that you've sent to me in the last month. And I think that we're actually going to be able to make some adjustments and some services to actually meet the need that they were calling about. So that's very exciting for me.
I appreciate that. It's just, y'all don't need me to tell y'all how hard this moment is. And it's just so encouraging knowing that other folk are out there doing all the work you're doing. The request is, and this might be a request for you, Marilyn, and maybe Jason, Michael, and then our public information office, but I would love to co-host with you all this month some sort of virtual, discussion about the services associated with our mobility management.
Absolutely. Jason actually has already passed that information on that you're wanting to help us with that. And Michael and I actually have a meeting next week to discuss that. And then we were planning on reaching out to you to just coordinate. So.
And yeah, that's wonderful. I know I've been putting that bug in you all's ear for a while. It's just, this time hearing you describe everything though, it makes way more sense for me to just sit back and give you that platform to describe the work. And so I'll let you all think through it, but I'd love to get that underway.
Yeah, we were hoping to do that in August along with the social media push since we are kind of, so we'll get that going for sure.
Finally a bright spot in the world. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other items by any of the trustees? I'm sorry, I think if we were meeting in person, these meetings would be a little shorter. I know the technology to get all this on the screen and do sure slows things down. So I kind of apologize for almost a 2-hour meeting, but we got through a lot of information. So Jason,
You need to receive the reports, Chris.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and we do need a motion to receive our program reports. We have a motion and a second.
Trustee Johnson, are you with us?
She had to leave to go to another meeting.
Okay, well, the motion passes. Thank you. All right, Jason, any final comments?
Just a quick comment on to your point, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this was an extended meeting, so we're happy to work with the trust in making sure, if needed, we shorten these or limit the number of presentations. And then secondly, just a thanks to Lisa. Generally, Lisa Hubble, our trust specialist, and Iris Newman, our administrative coordinator, have to really manage this meeting. It takes both of them, and Lisa's on her own today. So anyway, just a thanks to her, and I'm glad we were able to get through what we got through.
All right. Councilman Cooper, I can see why some city council meetings go several hours after what we've been through today. So
it is 6 to 9 hours was the month of June per council meeting. My goodness.
all right, if nothing else, everybody take care, stay healthy, and enjoy this nice weather we're having. So I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.